I'm Anna and I am teaching this 10-week series of trauma-informed yoga. The video for today is from the session that we did for the 4th class, and we mixed things up a little bit in this class and looked at the idea of yin yoga, which focuses on deep stretching in the body and working into those places in between our ligaments and our joints and our muscles that we aren't able to exercise and access as easily when we are doing kind of our general forms of exercise. So some of the principles of yin yoga, so it was really started through this idea of wanting to be able to stretch the body more and work on our deep flexibility. And it looks at the traditional Chinese medicine ideas of the yin and yang symbol, and how yin and yang is about bringing balance to our body, which equates to health within our bodies and our minds. So the ideas and principles of yin and yang is that yin represents the feminine and yang represents the masculine. So masculine activities would be your running, your cycling, your sort of highly competitive, high achievement sports that can put a lot more strain on our bodies, more of an Ashtanga style of yoga, a power yoga would be considered a yang practice. But also our lives can be very yang as well. So if you live in a busy city, if you have a very busy job, lots going on, kind of cramming things into your day, always rushing around, that would be considered quite a yang lifestyle. Whereas yin, which represents the sort of cooler feminine side, would be a slower, deeper, more restorative practice of yoga would be considered yin. Activities that would be considered yin would be much more gentle, maybe a gentle form of dance, or a Pilates practice that was more gentle, or maybe just, taking a more kind of meditative walk when you're out and about, that sort of thing. So the yin is this much more kind of gentle approach to life, which we balance with the yang to find health. And the reason why we wanted to look at yin yoga particularly today was last week we spoke about working into our fascia. And the fascia between our joints is really accessed best when our bodies are cold. So the deep stretching that you might do at the end of a traditional yoga class wouldn't actually be working into your fascia, into your ligaments in between your joints. It would be working your muscles, because as soon as your body becomes warm, then it's your muscles that are activated. So for yin yoga, your body really needs to be in a state where it's not warmed up yet. And I'll read you a little bit on my computer about some of the ways that yin yoga and this idea of fascia that we spoke about last week connects so well with us working with our bodies with trauma. So it says fascia can harden and become dehydrated as a result of emotional trauma and the body's response to extreme stress. So earlier in the article it talked about an animal's response to stress. When a deer is chased or when your dog becomes scared, often you'll see them do this kind of reaction afterwards where they shake off their stress, they kind of release the tension. And that's what we're not so good at doing as humans. We can repress it or hold it in. Even when we're triggered, we almost kind of learn to disassociate from that stress. And that means that we struggle to release it. So it kind of sits within our bodies and some people believe it sits within our fascia, although more studies are being done on that at the moment. So yeah, fascia can harden and become dehydrated as the result of emotional trauma and the body's response to extreme stress. This dehydration and tightening and hardening decreases the space between the fibres and increases friction and irritation inside the fascia. The fibres shorten and thicken and constrict, putting pressure on the adjoining areas. This results in compression in our nerves. It can lead to discomfort and pain, reduce the blood flow in the area, and affect our immune systems, reducing resilience even further. Yin Yoga helps to rehydrate the fascia, restore electricity, and widen the space between the fibres to improve circulation and help blood and oxygen flow more smoothly around the body again. So these next poses that we're going to do, these next asanas, with the idea of Yin Yoga, we hold the poses for longer. So you slowly come into the pose and then hold it at about a 70%, 60-70% kind of effort or stretch rate, just really kind of listening to your own body to make sure that you're not doing something for you that feels uncomfortable. And I will count us a little bit through the poses because you do hold them for longer. If that feels uncomfortable for you, if you start to kind of feel that feeling of being trapped in a pose that you don't want to be in, then listen to yourself clearly within that space and come out of it as soon as you need to look after yourself, because I recognise that that's not a feeling that is good for everyone. So you really want to connect to your body and connect to your own autonomy around this practice and do what feels right for you, not where you feel your instructor is pushing you to go. So we said about the kind of 60-70% sort of effort rating, stretch rating for each pose, listening to our bodies, making sure we don't feel pain, trying to come to a place of stillness if you're able to, just kind of so that you connect your mind and body together and work on your breath work. And then also just just trying to kind of find this place of balance within yourself where you're not pushing too hard, just you're finding that space that is nourishing. You're letting go of that idea of sort of how far you need to stretch or how flexible you want to be. So wherever you are, just get a comfortable position and we'll do a short grounding exercise and a short breathwork practice, just to come and be present. And whether you're sitting or lying down, noticing what you're sitting or lying on. Being aware of the sounds, of the noises, or the vibrations, or the sensations of the room around you, or the space around you. Bringing your attention to rest on the things that you can hear or sense. And maybe you're able to bring your attention that little bit closer to the space where you are sitting or lying. Noticing the parts of your body that are connecting to the mat or to the earth. And if you're able to, drawing your attention to your breath, noticing what it's doing in this moment. Is it catching anywhere? Does it flow smoothly? And maybe bringing your attention to your body and how it is feeling right now. Noticing whether it's feeling okay, whether there's any tightness or aches and pains. How are your emotions doing? Are they positive or negative? Without judgment, just noticing. And how is your mind doing? Is there lots going on? Or are you able to come to a place of stillness? And how have you looked after yourself so far today? Have you taken moments to pause? Have you drunk enough water today? And then coming back to your breath work for a moment. We'll go back to our balanced breathing practice. So I'll count us through 5 rounds of an inhale for 6 and an exhale for 6. But as with all our breathing practices, if there's a better count that works for you, then please do that. And just join us if it feels comfortable and okay. So breathing in, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Exhale, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Breathing in, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. And exhale, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. And in, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. And exhale, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Breathing in, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. And exhale, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. And one more time. Breathing in, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. And exhale, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. And coming back to a natural pattern of breath. Maybe in the quiet just for a moment, if you did connect or choose a sankalpa, an intention for yourself in this course, then maybe just remembering that and connecting to that and saying it to yourself in the quiet now. And coming to a seated position when you're ready and when you want to. Sorry, I was just checking my time on my watch, as I will just put a bit of a timer on for the different poses. But like we said, if the timings make you feel like you want to move out of the pose, then please do that. I'm also going to use my blocks and my yoga cushion, so books would be totally fine, and just general cushions would also be totally fine. So for this first one, you may want to use some cushions to help you build up the space in between your chest and your head and your legs. So coming to stretch the legs out in front of you, and maybe putting your cushions here or your blocks here. And once you've found a stretch that feels good for you, moving around as much as you need to find the right place, the right position that allows you to settle in. Maybe just coming to stillness. And in the face, and when we experience difficult and traumatic situations, as we've talked about, our bodies and our minds activate these various different states of survival mode to protect us from harm. And these responses are often called our trauma responses, and they're ingrained into us. We've talked about our autonomic nervous system, these responses that we don't control, they just happen naturally. And so the ones that we usually talk about is fight or flight. The lesser mentioned one is then freeze, and then the one that's not talked about very much at all would be fawn. And so we'll work through these 4 F's, these fight, flight, freeze and fawn responses, and the ideas of them in these different poses. And so what happens is that if we're kind of balanced and doing well, then we should be able to access any of these 4 areas to help us in a state of stress in that kind of moment of panic. But what can happen is that we tend to get stuck if we've experienced trauma in maybe just one or two of these trauma responses. So maybe you get stuck very much in a fight state, and that becomes your go-to stress response. And we develop these patterns of response. That means that we are less able to kind of come to our vulnerable state, because we're accessing these very protective responses that we, so maybe it's the fight response or the freeze response. You tend to find that you go there too much, and that stops us being able to sort of process and move on from our trauma. So it says the habitual use of the single defence mechanism also acts as a distraction, diverting the individual's attention away from the accumulating unbearable emotions associated with their ongoing sense of detachment and unresolved trauma. So just about 30 seconds left in this position, but just knowing that whenever you want to come out of it, you can do. And slowly and gently preparing your body to move as we've held this position for quite a while. And when you're ready and you want to, very gently just rolling up, maybe rocking the legs up and down, maybe just releasing the shoulders a little bit, doing whatever movement feels good for you after that quite stationary hold. And so for this next position, if you want to take it, then in yin, left represents the feminine and right represents the masculine. So in a yin class, we tend to practice our left hand side first when we remember to. So we'll keep our left leg stretched out if you want to do this pose, and taking the right foot to the inside of the left thigh, if that feels okay for you. And then taking that same stretch down the leg. Again, you're welcome to use your cushions to help you relax into the pose. In yin, we don't hold such straight lines as we do in general yoga. So you are allowed to kind of round your back, and allowed isn't quite the right word, but you're not discouraged as much from sort of rounding and releasing into the poses as you might be in a general yoga class. So settling into the pose and holding it for these next few minutes, but just to a point where it feels okay for you, and always listening to what your body and your emotions are telling you. So looking at each trauma response and how our yin practice can help with this nervous system regulation. So these first two poses that we're doing respond to the fight response. It's an instinctive reaction to danger that involves confronting head-on threat. This response is characterised by aggression, assertiveness, and the readiness to defend oneself or others. Individuals with a strong fight response might become confrontational, argumentative, or even physically combative when faced with stressful or traumatic situations. And while this response can be protective, it can also lead to interpersonal conflicts or escalate a tense situation. So the way that we work with this is to be aware of those sensations arising. You might even feel them in these poses, that desire to fight. Maybe the poses make you feel cross when you're in them. Just being aware of that and noticing those sensations. And so if we are a habitual fight responder, then it's important to kind of down regulate, to bring our nervous systems down out of that sympathetic fight state. We need to calm our nervous systems. And so just about 30 seconds more in this position. But again, coming out of it whenever feels good for you. Slowly and gently preparing yourself to move, coming up as slowly as you can, and maybe taking a gentle twist, a counter twist to the other side. Just releasing the back a little bit. And if you want to, do the same pose again, but this time with the right hand side, the masculine side. So stretching the right leg out in front of you if that feels okay. And again, working with your body, listening to what feels okay. Using the cushions or the blocks or your books as much as you need to, much as you want to. Coming down to that kind of 70%. And finding a place of stillness if you're able to. Noticing the sensations that are happening for you in your body right now. Noticing the emotions that come up. Not judging, just being aware. And responding to them as well, as and when you need to, backing out of the pose or deepening into the pose. And for somebody who finds themselves regularly in this fight response, creating although it sounds a bit cliche, a self-care routine. Maybe it's walks in nature, maybe it's a relaxation practice, a meditation practice, baths, things that help us connect to our rest or digest, our parasympathetic nervous system, and help us really rewire that belief that we need to fight our way through life. And slowly and gently preparing your body for movement, and when you're ready and when you want to, just coming up. And again, maybe just taking that gentle twist to the other side. Releasing the body as much as you need to and as much as feels okay for you. So, if you're feeling okay and you want to, then just taking a child's pose for one moment, just to really stretch out and round the back. Breathing into the back, into any tension that you might hold there. Again, this is a nice one for that fight response. And then slowly and gently, when you're ready and you want to, coming up to a seated position. And if it feels okay, we're going to do our deer pose or our 90-90 position. Do it on the carpet just so that you can see the shape of my legs if it's a bit dark on the yoga mat. So we're going to find this kind of right angle across the front leg, and the back leg is also at this sort of right angle as well. And then if it feels okay for you, then you're taking this fold over the hip here. Again, you're really welcome to settle your head onto your block or onto your cushion. Coming to a place that feels okay for you. Also, you can adjust your legs by bringing your shin in a little bit or your back shin in. Just finding a place that feels okay for your hips, and also just remembering that all of this is very optional, listening to your body. And these sort of releasing hip stretches where you're able to let go and release into them are great for working with our flight response. So our flight response involves seeking safety by escaping from the source of danger. This reaction is often accompanied by feelings of panic, restlessness, and a strong desire to flee the situation. Those with a predominant flight response may avoid conflict, confronting their trauma or difficult emotions, opting instead to distract themselves or physically remove themselves from triggering environments. While flight is a useful survival strategy, it may hinder emotional processing and healing in the long run. So poses like this deer pose or a butterfly pose, you could look up butterfly bound angle. If you felt safe and okay doing that, you could use blankets to make it feel better. Or a pigeon type pose where you're kind of releasing into it are all great for this flight response. And slowly and gently preparing your body and moving gradually up out of the pose. Maybe lifting your knees up and sort of shaking them left to right. And if you've kept that kind of position, you might be able to do this little swap onto the other side. I've come onto the carpet again, so you can just see the shape of my legs again. So this sort of 90-degree, or would it be 45? Anyway, this kind of right angle shape in front of you. The pose is called 90-90. And again, just using your blocks or your cushions as much as you want to and need to on the other side. Maybe noticing how one side feels different to the other. Often we develop holding patterns in our bodies that make one side feel quite different and aligned differently to the other. So increasing our self-awareness and self-connection is key for people who are habitual flight responders. So this might look like doing short meditations, or maybe reflecting or journaling on some of these prompts here. What deserves my utmost attention at this moment? What emotional pain am I trying to escape currently? Can I embrace the notion of comforting myself amid the distress? And so poses that allow us to slow down and reflect are great for this flight response. And when you're ready and you want to, and when feels good for you, just preparing your body to move again. And slowly and gently pushing up your hands if you want to, maybe rocking out the legs, releasing out the shoulders a little bit. And this next section of poses links to our freeze response. So we're going to do some lunge positions if you want to. So it's a little bit of weight put into the knees in a lunge. So if you want to pad your knees with blankets, then yeah, please do that, or yeah, feel free to skip these poses as well if they don't feel right for you. So again, we'll start with the left foot going forward. So left foot reaching up in front of you, toes pointing forward. And if you're able to, and if it feels okay, then just leaning into the hips here. Maybe you want to put both hands down for a little bit of stability. Maybe you can use your books or your blocks to put your hands onto. And settling in here. Noticing the sensations in your hips, noticing what response the different poses have in your body. And the freeze response is characterized by a sense of immobilization or feeling stuck, often leading to the dissociative state. So when triggered, individuals might feel disconnected from their emotions, their body, or their surroundings. And this response is thought to be an ancient survival mechanism. It's allowed our ancestors to go unnoticed by predators. And in a trauma context, freezing can help people endure overwhelming situations, but it can also hinder their ability to respond effectively or process their experience later on. Just about 10 more seconds here in this lungy positions. I appreciate they're a little bit more intense to hold, but also just coming out of it whenever you need to. And slowly and gently moving your body back if you want to and you're ready. Maybe taking a little bit of a stretch forward here. Maybe just rocking out the legs as much as you want to. And then if you want to join us on the other side, then stepping that right foot forward, up your mat, toes pointing out in front of you, back foot and toes are sort of flat on the mat if that feels okay. And then again, maybe just working out what the position is that feels okay for you. Maybe noticing from one side to the next what the differences are. I noticed that halfway through I got uncomfortable and had to come up onto my knees. So also just knowing that that is fine to move as much as you need to during the pose. Coming to your breath. And when we are often activating this freeze response, we want to work on up-regulating our nervous system. So a freeze response would be kind of, like we've spoken about, that hypo-arousal rather than hyper-arousal. So actually you want to kind of bring yourself back out of that hypo arousal state, that kind of autonomic state that you end up in. So these positions will activate a little bit of the healthy, sympathetic energy of the body, helping you come back to the present moment. Just about 10 more seconds here, if that feels okay for you. And slowly and gently, when you're ready and you want to, maybe just stretching that leg back, maybe just releasing the hips out a little bit, shaking from left to right, whatever feels right for you in the moment. And then if you want to, join us for this next pose, which is again still about that freeze response. We're going to take a forward fold here, if you want to, and it feels okay. So feet about hip distance apart, and it's like a dangle almost. So maybe you want to clasp either elbow, maybe you want to bend your knees a little bit, a soft bend in the knee, maybe it's shaking the head from left to right. Yoga also has lots of great breathing practices that help us stimulate the nervous system a little bit. So you could look up your Kapalabhati breathing on YouTube, or your skull shining breath is sometimes what it's called, or your fire breath, or your lion's breathing. Something that just helps you activate the nervous system a little bit, to help you come out of that freeze response. If you're still feeling okay, but also just knowing you can move whenever you want to, then we'll have got about 15 more seconds here. And then very slowly and gently, just watching out, because your blood pressure might make you feel a little bit dizzy as you roll back up slowly, as we've been inverted for a little while. Head coming up last, just going easy with yourself. If, like me, you can feel a little bit dizzy when you come up quickly, then maybe just taking your hands on your knees just for a moment. And then coming back to your mat whenever you're ready and whenever you want to. So for this next position, which look at this fawn response, we'll start off with our toes pose, if that feels okay. I'll again come onto the carpet just to show you here. So it's, the idea is that you're tucking your toes under. Don't rest back on them yet, just wait for a moment. So this can feel quite a lot of sensation, quite intense, especially if you wear quite restrictive shoes, maybe you're a runner or you're used to high heels, that kind of thing. So just do however much feels okay, and if you don't want to do it, then that's also perfectly fine. So sitting back onto your heels here, and again just knowing that you can come out of it whenever you want to. So the fawn response that is less spoken about, it's more nuanced. It involves appeasing or pleasing others in order to ensure safety or avoid conflict. And this, sadly, can definitely be a response that is built in childhood. This kind of appeasing adults or people around us to avoid conflict. And this response can manifest as being an over people pleaser, seeking approval, or even becoming submissive in the face of stress or danger. And maybe just releasing those toes out now, tapping them. Holding the toes pose for 30 seconds or a minute can definitely feel like quite a lot. And for this next pose, you've got a couple of options. So in the first option, which I would definitely say is not everyone's favourite, you would be placing your knees together and then your heels behind you here, and sort of relaxing your bottom down in between your heels and using your cushion or your blocks here to allow you to relax back. If that does not feel good for your knees and your thighs or whatever part might not appreciate that, you can also use your cushions here for that chest opening, dropping your hands out to the side, your arms out to the side, and really just relaxing into this stretch, this chest opener here. So getting into whichever position felt okay for you, or just coming to a lying down or a child's pose, just whatever feels right for your body in this moment. So when we exhibit a fawn response and an over tendency towards that, we may struggle with setting boundaries, prioritising our own needs, expressing our true feelings. And while this response can temporarily alleviate tension, it can also result in us going to that place of self-neglect too often. You may also notice that you're quite a defensive listener, and it's important to become aware of that. So we want to encourage self-communication with yourself, that introspection with yourself. Maybe that's through journaling or meditation, harnessing our sympathetic energy, fostering self-assurance and a positive self-expression. So poses that help connect to our chest space here, opening up, such as saddle, which is that pose that we were doing just now, maybe a camel pose or the toe squat, are great for this sort of self-empowerment. You might also want to try yoga practices that use sound. Maybe a yoga that uses chanting can promote that kind of communication and self-confidence. And just about 20 more seconds here. And so slowly and gently preparing your body for movement. And when you're ready and in your own time, just slowly coming out of the pose and moving your blocks or your cushions, and then coming down into your final resting pose, your Shavasana, in whatever way feels comfortable for you. You can have your knees bent. If you have any lower back problems, you're welcome to lie on your cushions or use the blanket. And if you want to, just resting here for a few moments, letting go of my instructions, letting go of the day that has already happened. Just letting your body soak in all the benefits of these poses. This is a place for rest and for peace.